Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon to all our 12th Monarchs out there in Monarch Nation, coming off a 41-28 win versus Hampton on Saturday, which puts our record at 1-0, which was the ultimate goal to get the win. Wanted to make sure we got that done. In terms of the game, overall, this was a poor performance by everybody involved with our program, myself, coaches, players. Everybody knew it after the game when we were in the locker room. I actually had to pick them up and remind them that they won the football game, but it was kind of a somber group because they knew that was not a good performance overall by our team, and really in any of the three phases: special teams, defense, or offense. The good news is, I mentioned we got the win. We also played really hard. After watching all 191 snaps yesterday and reviewing those thoroughly, I felt like our guys competed. I felt like they played really hard. We were able to get 27 first-year players their first snaps in a college football game, and I sometimes have to remind myself, because I've been coaching for a long time, that they are still kids. I had a conversation yesterday with a freshman who will stay unnamed, and I said, "What was your favorite part of the game yesterday?" And I'm thinking he's going to tell me there was a certain play that was really exciting to him. He said, "Oh, that's easy, Coach, running out the tunnel." So they are still kids, and they're still trying to figure all this out, but definitely some areas that we need to improve. Special teams overall was very poor on Saturday. We only had one punt situation, and one of our defensive players didn't get out there in time. We rushed it, and we had a very poor punt. It was a 25-yard punt, and our only punt. We had kickoff team. We started off, had three really good kickoffs, and then we gave up three returns that are out between the 40 and the 50-yard line, which is unacceptable. Kickoff return, we didn't field a pop over. We saw it coming. They moved the ball from where they normally put it over to their right hash. We could see that it was coming, and we had two guys go up and block instead of just waving their hand and fair catching it. And that was critical at that point in the game, because they could have cut it to a one-score game at that time. So a lot of work to do on special teams. We've got a lot of new faces there that got their first time, so some critical areas we'll work on this week. Defensively, it was really an up and down performance throughout the game by our defense. I'm very excited with the 4 turnovers, and the 4 turnovers to see and how we took the ball away. We had a phenomenal interception, had a big-time strip on the quarterback. Actually, 3 times we stripped the ball away from the quarterback, so that was great to see. We set a school record with sacks. We had 6 sacks in that game Saturday, and plenty of other opportunities, which tells me we're improving in the area of pass rush, which we didn't have last year. So some of these younger guys are doing a better job rushing the quarterback. Particularly good to see Poncho Barnwell playing in his first college football game. Had 2 sacks, had some other pressures, so we feel like we've got somebody who can develop into a good edge pass rusher. In Poncho, I was very excited with how he played. And defensively, we only allowed 9 yards rushing on 26 carries. Now, obviously, that includes the sacks, but overall, I felt we were very good against the run. The disappointment was allowing their quarterback, who I thought played very well, but allowing 32 for 46 for 407 yards passing. We had too many missed assignments in pass coverage. We had breakdowns in pass coverage, guys not being in the areas of the field that they were supposed to be in our zone coverage concepts, or not getting a check based on a motion or a movement. And those are things we've got to work to clean up this week. We played 25 players on defense. 17 of those players are either first or second year guys. That's a lot of inexperienced players that we're playing with. But we've got to continue to work with them. We've got to continue to get better. I feel like we've got some talented kids on defense, and we've got to continue to work to improve. Offensively, we played 21 guys in this game, and 16 of those guys are either first or second year players. So, and the youth showed. You could see the youth on offense Saturday, particularly in the offensive line, where we've got some young guys that are first-time guys that are getting out there to play. But when you score 41 points and you have 469 yards overall. We had pretty good balance. We had about 190 yards rushing and 280 yards passing. That's solid. We only had 67 yards in the fourth quarter, so we were well on our way to a 600-yard game. And that's when our breakdown started towards the end of the third, early in the fourth. And what I shared with the offense that I was most disappointed in overall with the performance is we're up 41-21. Our defense gets a turnover. We got an opportunity right there to put the game away. And we get 3 straight penalties that puts us back 30 yards. And then we throw an interception on a deep ball. Defense stops them again, forces a bad punt. And on a 4th and 2, we throw an interception down inside the 10-yard line. So we had opportunities to take that game and make it a 55-21 game early in the fourth, and then we've got a chance to just clear the bench and get everybody some good quality work. But we didn't do that. We didn't finish it the way we needed to. We need to clean up the operation with the snaps. For whatever reason, Saturday, Josh was having a hard time with the ball getting back. We had 10 snaps that were high, where Taylor had to reach up high, and that hurts the operation on some of the zone read concepts and what he's trying to do. So we'll focus on that. And the 2 interceptions were really the 2 big negatives that we had overall. Speaking to this week's opponent, North Carolina State, they're 1-0 coming off a 24-23 win against Georgia Southern at home in a game that Georgia Southern really had the game won. They were up 20-10. They had the ball 1st and goal on the 1, and they fumbled going in. They could have made it a 27-10 game with 10 minutes to go. But credit North Carolina State, they came back, won that game late. I think they found their quarterback. Last year they were really struggling at that position throughout the year. They played 3 different players last year, and Jacoby Brissett, the transfer from Florida, who was a highly recruited player out of high school. He was a 4-star recruit. Really good football player. He played well in the game. He was 28 for 40 for 291 yards, threw 3 touchdowns. They were solid in the running game. They do a lot in the running game, a lot of motion, a lot of movement. They run the Wildcat formation with a couple of their running backs, where they'll split Brissett out wide and run the ball, and they're really big up front. They're huge in the offensive line. This is as big as an offensive line as we've seen, along with a 270-pound tight end. So it's going to make it a challenge for us up front. Defensively, they're much improved over last year. They look bigger, faster, stronger. I think Coach Doran did the same thing we did here last year. He played a lot of the new players that they brought in. They were really young last year. Those kids have got some experience, but when you look at their 2 deep, it's primarily sophomores and freshmen on both sides of the ball that are playing. They had 20 different guys on the tackle chart defensively that had tackles in this game, so they're playing a lot of young players, and you see that with their staff being in their 2nd year. This will be a major challenge for our team. We're going to have a really good week of practice and prepare, but I love the kids' approach from Saturday after the game, how they responded to yesterday in here. They all came in with a great attitude, wanted to learn. So I think we'll have a real good week of practice and hopefully get down and compete well in this game. And I'll take questions.
Coach, what's the most important thing you take out of Saturday's game looking forward?
Well, the number one thing is getting the win. Number 2 is to get all those 27 first-year players, getting them experience. I mean, that's critical because we don't have any, there's no scrimmages in preseason. Like basketball can get some scrimmages and get some kids in there. Our guys are out in the first game playing. So getting those 27 new guys experience, a lot of positives came out of those new guys that played. I mentioned Poncho Barnwell, but there's a lot of freshmen or first-year guys that I could talk about Saturday that got experience. So that's really the most critical thing that came from that game, is getting that experience. And the other thing that really stood out to me Saturday is you look at Taylor's statistics and you look and you say 29 for 40, 280 yards. He's up, 72, 73% completion. Well, he's trying to figure out some of these new receivers. He's got Zach Pascal, who's a veteran guy. He got the ball too. He's got Antonio Vaughn, but a lot of the other guys are new. We had some routes that weren't run at the proper depths. The timing was off a little bit. So that's going to take a little bit. It's going to take a little bit for Taylor to get it in sync. But then you look, and like I said, he's 29 for 40 at the end of the game. So it'll be more critical this week, particularly with the timing of the routes, because they're solid defense.
You got 11 remaining games against FBS schools. Are you ready?
Here we go. I don't know if we're quite ready, but it's on the schedule, so we got to go with it. But I know they're excited. You know, the players are really excited about this moving forward. And you know, when you come out of a game like playing against Hampton, and I told Coach Maynard this after the game, I congratulated him. I thought his kids played hard. They competed, but you know, we're expected to win that game by a big margin. That's the expectation when you go into it. Yeah, I don't know what we were favored by, but I'm sure it was a lot. So when you come out of it and you don't win by a big margin, then everybody's looking and going, you know, well, what's wrong? And like I said to the kids, most critical thing is getting the win. But now we were able to look at it after the win, see all the mistakes we had, and there were plenty of them, and get a chance to grow and learn from it. So I feel like we'll be much improved this week going down to NC State.
Last time you went down to North Carolina, things didn't turn out so well. Is that something that kind of anybody thinks about going forward into this game? Not
at all. No, that one's been flushed out of it. This is a new slate. This is a different team. We got a completely different team. So I'm not going to bring it up. I'm not going to talk to them about it. I'm going to try to get them to really just focus on North Carolina State and what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and what we need to do to win a football game. That'll be the most critical thing for us this week. And like I mentioned, there's a bunch of kids that they weren't here. You know, there's a bunch of kids that are brand new. They don't know one game from the other last year. They just know what's in front of us.
Hey, Bobby, when you went back and looked at the tape from Saturday's game, and I know you were disappointed with the defense, particularly pass defense, was it execution? Was it anything schematically that either you did or Hampton did that gave you guys problems?
Yeah, they did a really nice job with their game plan. I thought Coach Maynard had a really good plan. He had a nice mix between his play-action pass, his drop back, his three-step, and then they were very good in screens. They executed the screens very well. They caught us in some blitz, that 75-yard touchdown. They caught us in a blitz, and they executed it perfectly on that. So they did a very nice job with their game plan and how they executed it. Our pass lanes at times, even though we had the 6 sacks, were poor. Our ends were far too much up the field and allowing the quarterback to step up and get out of the pocket and break contain. So we had issues there. We had issues at linebacker not dropping into pass lanes. You know, there's times they're in a pass play and our inside linebackers are up waiting for the quarterback to scramble. They're not dropping into their hook or curl zone where they're supposed to be, and that puts incredible pressure on the safeties. Some of those balls you saw caught over the middle, they're in areas where the linebackers are supposed to be. And they're supposed to be in that area. And that hurt us, Dave. That put us in a really bad situation on a number of plays. I can think right now of a couple 3rd and longs they had where our linebackers are supposed to be underneath the routes, and they're not. So it was a combination of they did a good job, they executed, they caught the ball well. You know, the quarterback threw the ball well for the most part, and our guys weren't in the positions they're supposed to be in. So we have to get that fixed this week, because if I'm looking at us, if I'm NC State or anybody down the road, I'm looking at it, I'm saying, I'm going to throw the ball every time. You know, these guys aren't playing coverage very well. I'm just going to keep throwing it. And that's an area we've got to improve. Particularly, Dave, in our 3-4 package, where we're drop 8 in coverage. It's not something we've done a lot around here, but it's something we're going to need to improve on, because Conference USA is primarily a throwing league. It's like our offense. It's spread it out and it's throw the ball. So when we get down the road here and start seeing Middle Tennessee and Marshall teams that spread it out and throw it, that 3-down package, that drop 8 package with a mix of zone pressures and coverage, that's got to improve. We have to get better at it, because right now we're not a team, Dave, that can line up in a 4-man front and get enough pressure on the quarterback. You know, we're just not good enough in our pass rush. I think we're going to get better. I think we're going to become a better pressure team, but we've got to be able to, at points when it's 3rd and 15, we've got to be able to play 3-down, drop 8, and cover people, and not allow those conversions like we did Saturday in the 3rd and long. So it's different things we're working on in our package, and right now we're just trying to find the right pieces to the puzzle, getting the right players in the right position to play those spots.
You confident that you have the right players and the personnel, you know, to be able to do what you want to do defensively?
I feel like we do. I feel like we've got, particularly with the depth we have this year, my biggest concern right now is at the linebacker position, where we don't have a lot of depth. That's a concern right now, and that's where I was talking with our defensive staff this morning. We've got to look at more nickel, possibly even dime personnel packages right now, because we had Martez Simpson was scheduled to start. He was out for the game with an injury. I think he'll be back this week. And Isaiah Worthy played, true freshman linebacker, played very well. I was really pleased with Isaiah Worthy. He's going to be a very good football player for us. But some of these guys, they're going to have to play a lot, and particularly the new players. We need Isaiah to play well. We need Martez to come back and play, because that's an area right now where we don't have a lot of depth, is at that linebacker position.
You said quite often last year that you guys were committed to playing the younger players because they were FBS level recruits and
right.
that sort of thing. And, and we'll just like take our lumps, live with it, get better. Yeah. Is it almost the same kind of scenario and the same kind of philosophy this season?
Yeah, it's definitely, Dave, it's definitely a situation where we're I feel like each year we're recruiting better players. When you look back at last year and those 22 scholarship players we signed in that class, they were the second-ranked class in Conference USA, so they're talented kids, and I feel like after watching them for a month, they can all play. They're all good football players, and we played a lot of them Saturday night, and we've already made the decision as coaching staff. We're going to play them Saturday night. We're going to stick with them. We're going to play those guys. So there's going to be some times where it's not going to look as good as it needs to. But again, we're still trying to build this for the future. Obviously we want to win right now, but with this move and making this transition, we've also got to keep our eye on the future and trying to build it. And I feel like now, Dave, with 105 players on the roster, 89 of them are back next year, that we should be at the point next year where we don't have to play all these freshmen. And I feel like that should be the case next year, because next year will be our fourth class that we're bringing in. So I'm hoping all these players develop and they're good players. It's hard. It's hard to keep playing freshmen. We saw it last year playing freshmen, particularly at the end of the year when we just got decimated with injury. It's hard to play those kids because physically it's hard on them. So I'm hoping this is the last year in this cycle where we got to play as many of these young kids. But we're going to stick with them. We're going to play them. Hopefully it works out.
I know one game isn't, is a very small sample size, but talk about special teams,
yeah,
and how important special teams are to you, being the special teams coordinator that you are. But
I only like that title when we're doing well.
Yeah, but how much does the attrition, whether the kids that either injuries or the kids that were taken, that are no longer in the program, how much do you think that affects how effective you guys are on special teams or can be this season?
Yeah, no, it's a good point you bring up. It definitely has a major effect because the majority of the players that are on special teams, other than the punt and kickoff team, we have a lot of starters there. But when you look at the punt return team, kickoff return team, we had new kids out there in the kickoff return team and we didn't field the ball. I mean, it's the first time that's happened to them in a game. So there's inexperience with a play that we turned the ball over. And we're going to play a lot of young kids on the teams because like I talked to the coaches about, if we got a true freshman, and let's say he's only going to get 10 reps on defense or 10 reps on offense in a game, well, he better get 15 to 20 on special teams. Otherwise, we're not utilizing that player. We're playing a kid who we could easily redshirt, so that puts more pressure on the players, and quite frankly, it puts more pressure on the coaches to make sure we're developing those players for the future. And we're going to have to live with some of the mistakes. We're going to have to minimize some of the things we're doing schematically to make sure the kids are comfortable. But we're going to play them. And your point about the attrition, that definitely hurts when you lose experienced players. Whether it's offense, defense, or special teams, it sets you back. And then we've got to accelerate these new players. They have to play, and they have to play well.
Any other questions for Coach?
Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it. We'll look forward to seeing you Saturday night down at North Carolina State.